Hi, it's Michael Caputo for Still Standing. Here's my video. I put it up once a week or so. It's been a couple of weeks since I've done one of these. I was traveling the last couple of weeks, but I'm home now and lots going on, so I figured I'd throw a video up there. You can check us out at stillstandingpodcast.com. I do a weekly audio, mostly a weekly video, and a bit of blogging there at stillstandingpodcast.com. You can catch more of these videos there. It goes back a couple of months. I just started doing this late in the year in 2018, and I'll be doing this on a weekly basis from here going forward. A lot of things going on in politics. We had a great State of the Union. Those crazy Democrats in Virginia with their blackface and sexual assault, and a whole bunch of other things. But one thing that's really going on, really happening here in New York State, is this new Reproductive Health Act, which was passed quite recently on January 22nd. They've been trying to pass it for a lot of years, ever since Governor Elliot Spitzer, before he got taken out of office for running around with hookers. He first proposed this. I don't think it's much of a coincidence that a guy who runs around with hookers was the first one to bring this one up. But, the Reproductive Health Act, which was passed on January 22nd, they call it an update to the existing law in New York State. And they say that it simply codified Roe v. Wade into New York State statutes. But, of course, it does a lot more than that. And New York, being a deep, deep blue state, they were going to do far more with abortion than pretty much any other state. Now, in New York State, according to the Reproductive Health Act, a non-doctor can perform an abortion. That's right. Doesn't have to be a physician anymore. They say that's so that people in rural areas can get abortions upon demand. And, of course, Cardinal Dolan in New York City of the Catholic Diocese says, of course, that it just makes getting an abortion easier. Of course, he's right. It also pretty much makes it, pretty easy to get an abortion for any reason. Any reason. Up until dilation. Up until birth. Late term. Just pre-birth abortion. I know a lot of people who support this stuff say that nobody would ever abort a healthy baby just before birth. But are you sure about that? And of course, there's now no criminal penalties for abortion in New York State, even if the mother doesn't even want the abortion. There's no criminal penalty for aborting a baby, all the way up until dilation. And then, in addition to that, there's no protections for infants who are accidentally born alive during an abortion, which happens. In fact, there's an abortionist who's in jail for murdering babies that survived his dismembering of them during an abortion procedure. And again, I've had pro-abortion women tell me on social media that no doctor would allow an accidentally born alive post-abortion baby to die. But they don't just let them die. They actually kill them. In New York, that wouldn't be illegal at all. I find this to be absolutely disgusting. I think a lot of Catholics, a lot of Christians, a lot of just anti-abortion forces here in New York find it really over the line. Now, I used to be, in favor of abortion. I really didn't care much about it. I was really young at the time, and when you're young, you tend to support just about everything. But then, today, to me, abortion is murder at any point in time during a pregnancy. I know that I disagree with a lot of people on that, but that's my position, and it's really driven by my faith. I'm a Catholic. To me, full-term abortion, it's ghoulish, immoral, and mentally sick. And to me, that's exactly what the Reproductive Health Act in New York does, the new law. Now, this is a religious issue for me. It's always been a religious issue for me. I really came to my new kind of views on abortion when I became a Catholic, but I started really opposing abortion before that. I became a Catholic in 2000 as an adult. it's really rooted in my faith. I got to tell you, I'm really uncomfortable talking about abortion because it's so divisive. Yeah, I think I'll have me a bourbon. I feel like Senator Warren, except in actuality, I drink bourbon regularly, where Elizabeth Warren was just pretending to be a beer drinker. But, you know, I try. My faith calls upon me to love the people who oppose me in this issue and all issues. And I try to do that. When I fail, I try to correct myself. It happens a lot on Twitter. Sometimes I get pretty mean on Twitter when people are mean to me, and I try to correct myself. I've done it recently. But in contrast, I think many of the people who support abortion on demand all the way through dilation, they hate people who call them out on it. I'm getting called out by people that I respect on my Facebook page, people who are actually friends of mine, who are pro-abortion. They call themselves pro-choice, but let's just face it, they're pro-abortion. And being pro-choice used to be kind of a sensible way of describing it, but it's not anymore. See, I believe these people, well, it's really changed a lot recently. And there were really great articles this week about this stuff, especially in The Federalist, which is a great website, a conservative website. There was an article by a guy named Kyle Salmon called New York's Law is Abortion's John C. Calhoun Moment. And he talked about slavery versus abortion, the battle against slavery and the battle against abortion. Now, I'm assuming that Kyle Salmon is pro-life, anti-abortion, as I am. But he made a very interesting and intellectual argument in comparison. And I think slavery and abortion are two issues that have been compared a lot. And successfully so, intellectually so. And Salmon does a good job. I would check it out. It's on thefederalist.com. But in here, he talks about how during the years of slavery, pre-1837, that slavery was talked about as a necessary evil, as an economic necessity, because these massive plantations in the South could not possibly be profitable if they didn't have slave labor to bring in the crops. That's why in a lot of cases that we didn't have slaves up north, because we didn't have these massive plantations and we weren't growing cotton, which was labor intensive. And they called it a necessary evil. But then John C. Calhoun, a Southern politician, made a speech in 1837, and he actually called slavery a positive good. Tried to make a case that slavery was good. And to me, I think to all of us, certainly most Americans, almost all Americans, you can never make a case that slavery is a positive good. But in 1837, that's what he wanted to do. Bourbon is so much better than beer, Senator Warren. Anyway, so when Calhoun made that speech in 1837, it really set the stage for when it ended up being the Civil War to end slavery, because making the case that, or attempting to make the case that slavery was a positive good, really failed in the minds of Northerners especially, and a lot of Southerners. They couldn't see slavery as a positive good, especially among people of faith who saw slaves actually adopting Christian values, going to church, becoming Christians, even becoming preachers and being very good at it. So people of faith really saw this whole positive good spin from Calhoun as really a hollow and flawed logic. And it was after Calhoun, that was kind of like a watershed pivotal moment where we were really destined to a civil war. We were destined to end slavery, and it was forced. Basically, a civil war was the only way to get it done. So now we compare that, at least Kyle Salmon does in The Federalist, thefederalist.com, to Hillary Clinton, let's say, during her husband's presidency, and even as late as 2008, she defined, she supported abortion Safe, legal, and rare is what she said. And I believe Bill Clinton said it that way too. Safe, legal, and rare. She wanted to have choice, the women to have a choice for an abortion, but she didn't want it to happen very often. And that was something that was acceptable to most Americans. Safe, legal, and rare. But, of course, now, today, things are very different, right? Very different. Today, the left shouts their abortion, right? Today, there are videos about people talking about how great their abortion was. Women who think that abortion is something that that is not, doesn't need to be rare. Have one on Fridays, every Friday. Ridiculous. In fact, when they passed and the governor signed, Governor Andrew Cuomo signed the Reproductive Health Act here in New York on January 22nd here in 2019, they actually lit the spire of the Freedom Tower down on the site of the World Trade Center in pink to celebrate. If you saw the video of everyone celebrating in the legislature after the bill was passed, they were absolutely they were applauding and celebrating and they had a big party that night. It wasn't about safe, legal, and rare anymore. It was about shouting your abortion and lighting up the spire of the Freedom Tower to celebrate abortion. It's not only different today, it's radically different. And that's why Kyle Salmon says this is abortion's John C. Calhoun moment. And somehow or another, according to Salmon, the fact that we now shout our abortions and light up the spire of our tallest towers to celebrate abortion, that those who oppose abortion, or at least find it, for example, people like me, find it really, disgusting. I don't even like talking about abortion, hence the bourbon. I don't even like talking about it. To me, it's so divisive. It's like talking politics at the dinner table on Christmas, I mean, whenever I bring it up, people that I really like, there's a woman on my Facebook named Kristen, who I'm very fond of. She disagrees with me on everything, but I find her really an amazing person because she beat cancer. She's a lawyer. She's raising a family. I believe she's a single mom. I've only met her a couple times, but boy, when we talk about abortion on social media, she really gets mean. She starts talking about how only stupid people don't support abortion, and it's the left's war on normal. That's what I think it is, and that's actually the title of a great article in Talkies Magazine, TalkieMagazine.com. You got to check that out. TAKI. There's a writer there named David Cole that I follow. I'm trying to figure out who this guy David Cole is. He's really bright and brilliant. I bet he's young. I can't really find him on social media, but he's a great writer and he has really good ideas. And he has this article that just came out this week called "The Left's War on Normal." I'm sorry, Kristen, I don't mean to call you out because I do like you very much, but it's about how the left is really moving the goalposts, not just like Calhoun moving moving slavery from a necessary evil to a positive good, and not just Hillary Clinton in 2008 saying abortion should be safe, legal, and rare, and now we're shouting about our abortions and lighting up the spires in pink on our tallest towers. The left has a war on normal on many things, and this guy Cole has a very interesting article. You got to check it out. And in there, he actually uses one of my favorite television shows, The Wire, to use it as an example, and talks about the two. I don't know if you ever watched The Wire. It's a show about the Baltimore drug wars. I guess crack cocaine wars. Really interesting show from the perspective of the police, from the perspective of the community, from the perspective of the drug dealers. Very, very well done. And there, in the beginning, we have one massive drug dealer named Stringer Bell, who's kind of a well-dressed guy, kind of a philosopher king of sorts. Really, didn't like to kill, but had to kill sometimes to keep his illegal empire going. And then he was murdered, and his lieutenant was put in jail and replaced by this guy named Marlo Stanfield. was his name. You'll recognize these characters if you ever turn on The Wire. It's great. One of the best shows ever. And in The Wire, this Marlo Stanfield he's very different from Stringer Bell. Very different. Where Stringer Bell is, a reluctant kind of murderer and a philosopher kingpin. Marlo Stanfield actually gets off on killing people because he can, not because he must, and really gross in that respect. He's kind of like the shout your abortion guy in The Wire, where Stringer Bell is the safe, legal, and rare person in The Wire, where Stringer Bell is the necessary evil of slavery. Marlo Stanfield is the positive good John C. Calhoun of slavery. And there's this, he tells this guy, David Cole, actually relates one great episode of The Wire, one of the best, where Marlo Stanfield had taken over. He's in kind of a bodega going to pick something up, and he decides, even though the guy's a multimillionaire from dealing drugs, he decides to steal some candy from the counter, and he looks right at the security guard in the bodega when he does it. And he leaves with the chocolate bar, whatever it was, in his pocket, and the security guard comes out and he says, dude, I'm not going to bust you because I know you're a drug dealer or whatever, you're a tough guy, but, it's really, really, you're just wrong in doing this. You're just flaunting it in my face, and that's just not the way life is. That's not how good people act. And Marlo says to him, you want it to be one way, but it's the other way. You want it to be one way, but it's the other way. And what David Cole says is the left's war on normal. They want it to be okay to celebrate abortion, which is murder. They want it to be okay. They want it to be their way, but it's the other way. It's not good. And when they go from safe, legal, and rare, go from necessary evil to a positive good, to shout your abortion, normal people are going to say, you know what? I kind of tolerated this talk of abortion. I tried to raise my kids right so they would be safe in their sexual relations so they wouldn't need an abortion. I don't support it. Maybe some people support it in 24 weeks. But 9 months, just before dilation, for the life of the mother, sure, but the life and health of the mother, I know that's in Roe v. Wade, but it wasn't in New York, and now it's the life and health of the mother in New York. That means if health is mental health as well. Nowadays, when people are saying that a doctor needn't be the one performing abortion, it can be a nurse practitioner or even some kind of health professional. Doesn't need to be a doctor anymore. That's not normal. So this is the John C. Calhoun moment of abortion here in New York State, if you ask me. It is. And those of us here who live here, it's kept me awake a little bit ever since January 22nd when they passed it. My very dear friend David DiPietro, who's a state assemblyman in Albany, he's from our area here in East Aurora. He's, I would say, the preeminent opponent to these abortion measures in Albany. I know he's had trouble sleeping as well. It turns my stomach. I mean, to advocate the murder of innocents, I can't believe that the people who support this measure sleep well at night. They've got to know that at 9 months, it is a baby. I mean, a clump of cells at 4 weeks, that's hard. It's harder to argue from a pro-life standpoint, but not at 9 months, my friend. And if you're able to give an abortion to a woman who just thinks that having a baby is not good for her mental health, you're murdering innocents. I really feel sorry for them. I do. I feel sorry for these people who think the Reproductive Health Act is something to celebrate, something to light up the top of the Freedom Tower in pink about, something to cheer. But, I'm kind of more focused on my own faults, really. I don't want to wag my finger at them too much. I just want to do this video and get past the... I have so many faults. Innumerable faults. I need to focus on them, not on theirs. But the president this week, just yesterday, in a briefing with the Regional Press Association, Regional Reporters Association, he had actually a reporter from the Buffalo News there, Jerry Zremski, who I know, and he's a good guy. He's the bureau chief of the Buffalo News in Washington. There's a Governor Cuomo was crying about a tax shortfall. We've actually got a deficit of a couple of $billion here in New York already, and he's blaming the president for it when we know this state is just so horribly overtaxed, and it's the worst state in the country to do business, and so many wealthy people are leaving. The people who they really want their money from are going because the tax rates are so high. And the president said, if New York's going to treat these people, if New York isn't going to treat these people better, I would recommend they go to another state where you can get a great job. He's right. I'm here in New York because my father's here. I love East Aurora, a little village where I grew up. It's my hometown. I love the fact that my children can ride the little 10-cent pony at Vidler's 5 and Dime here in East Aurora. The same 10-cent pony, they call him Sandy, or her, that I used to ride as a kid. I love that. I love our brick streets, and I love the fact that our little village is so picturesque. I really enjoy it. I've been so glad to be home now, I guess for almost 9 years now. But I guess if it weren't for my father, I'd probably not be here. Well, none of my clients are here. There's really no economic reason to be here. And now, with this abortion up until dilation law in New York, this ghoulish celebration of the whole thing. And by the way, it's not lost on me that these laws are proliferating across the country. They have one in Vermont. They just tried to pass one in Virginia. Remember, Governor Northam first got himself crossways when he started trying to excuse this abomination on WTOP last week, when he's trying to explain what is really infanticide. But it's already passed in New York. It's a law here. It's normal. This is the left's war on normal. And we're already there in New York State. Already there. I'm terribly uncomfortable talking about abortion. I always have been. But in reality, if you want to see where the country is going with the left's war on normal, just come to New York. Come to upstate New York, where the economy is shit. It really is. And it's, while the rest of the country is just going gangbusters, we're kind of moving along here. We're losing jobs in New York State when everyone else is gaining them. Doesn't matter what Andrew Cuomo does with the economy. He keeps trying to juice the economy with these corporate welfare gigs for Tesla and others, and it's just not working. The reason why our economy is crap is because our government is crap. And the reason why New York State really has so many problems is because there's a war on normal. We've reached our John C. Calhoun moment here in New York. It's going to happen to you as well. Pay attention, because when it's pro-abortion up to dilation, there is something fundamentally wrong with this society. All right, so cheers. Let's not talk about abortion anymore. At least not for a while. I can tell you this. When Ruth Bader Ginsburg is revealed as unable to do her job, or God forbid, when she passes, that's going to absolutely show you what the war on normal is all about. It's going to happen. She's 85. She just had half her lung taken out and then got hit with pneumonia. She might already be incapacitated right now, even though there are reports that she's recuperating. But when Ruth Bader Ginsburg needs to be replaced by President Donald Trump, you want to see a war on normal? Watch. Watch. The Kavanaugh hearings were a dress rehearsal. Okay, next week here on Still Standing. I'll catch you then. Have a great day.